Hello and welcome. I am Scrapperlock and this is City of Heroes on the Rebirth server. We are with our level 50 Brute, Quintessence last. We're doing our very final story arc against the Carnival of Shadows. We have 0 experience needed to get to the next level because there are no next levels. We're level 50 and we're on a story arc for Harvey Mailer. But before we get into that remainder of this story arc, I do want to apologize. The last episode or two, the game sound was way too loud. I had the settings wrong for OBS. I greatly apologize for that. I would probably delete them, but the last episode before this, which had sound that was overriding some of what I said, was the episode where we hit level 50, and that is the final level, so I don't want to not post that. I do apologize. If you can't hear what I was saying, I apologize for that. I'm not going to repeat it. I'll never be able to remember everything I said anyway. We'll just move on and talk about other things. But I do apologize for that unpleasantness. And the sound should be back to normal with a very low level of game sound. And you should be able to hear my voice properly. I do apologize. So Harvey says that Penelope Yin explained to him that Vanessa DeVore has been psychically dominating so many people for many years, that she's all over the psychic plane, so we're going to have to basically go inside her thoughts and deal with her. So there are going to be several of these. The first of these is in Founders Falls. I think most of these are outdoor missions, but I could be wrong about that. And then I think eventually we're going to think we defeated her, and then we're going to have to actually go into a warehouse and fight her for real, if I remember the way this story arc goes. I'm not afraid of giving spoilers since we've done 2 times this story arc. Well, at least once before with Tiger Strike. I don't know if I was able to post the time I ran through this with Silver Phoenix, because it may have happened. It may have been recorded but not posted because of the homecoming rules on posting videos. They came out right around the time that I was starting to post the videos where Silver Phoenix got near level 50. So, anyway, we're going to head inside. In the last episode, if you could stomach trying to hear my voice over, and we got 3 memories to find. If you could stomach trying to hear my voice over all the background noise, what I was talking about was player agency. And I was talking about it from the perspective of something that Matt Colville said. We're just going to outline this zone first, and then we'll go toward the middle of it and see if we can find the memories. But it actually, the origins of the player agency discussion came from something that occurred with my someone who was a former leader of my former supergroup, and that came in discussion with stuff that I talked to her about what my friend was doing. So I've mentioned on this channel before that my best friend has gone through the Dungeon Master's Guide and the various supplements, picking out all of the magic items that he wanted for his character to have. And I complain about that on this channel because I feel like, and he ought to feel like this too, we learned to play D&D together, and we sort of taught each other how to play. And here's one of the memories, it looks like. And so, in the old days when we played D&D, looking in the Dungeon Master's Guide to look up magic items was kind of cheating. Now, the reality is we were all DMs at one point or another, so we all kind of were allowed to look in the Dungeon Master's Guide, but when you were being the player, you weren't supposed to be opening up that book. When you were being the player, you weren't supposed to be opening up Monster Manual. And by the way, it actually says that in the Dungeon Master's Guide, right at the beginning, in the first line of the preface written by Gary Gygax, it says, "This is a book for the Dungeon Master's eyes only, and players shouldn't be reading it." And similarly, in the Monster Manual, at the end of the preface, it says that, in the ordinary course of play, I can't remember exactly how he says it, players ought not to be, rifling through this book while they're in the middle of an adventure to see what the monsters they're facing can do, right? That's sort of cheating. No, it's not sort of. It is cheating. You're looking up what kinds of things can stop a troll while you're fighting a troll, and your character wouldn't know this because your character's never encountered a troll before. You shouldn't be doing that. And my friend knows this. We've always played that way. I don't think he looks up stat blocks of monsters while they're in the middle of playing. I do think he looks them up afterwards, and that bothers me because, like for instance, they fought Slod a little bit, but the Slod are actually going to be kind of the main enemies to fight. They just haven't gotten to where the Slod are right now, and it sort of will irritate me if he's looked them up because you're going to be fighting them again in the future. Don't look them up. You haven't finished fighting them. Look them up after you're done fighting them. But I do know he's looked up stuff from the adventures that he's playing with other DMs, and I suspect he might very well be looking stuff up after he's done fighting it. Like, he might have gone and looked up all the Kuatoa stats now, because they're done with the Shrine of the Kuatoa. And so, like, I don't really like him looking up this stuff in the Dungeon Master's Guide, and I sort of, complained about that. And the other thing I mentioned to this former guildmate of mine is that, and current friend, by the way, I consider her a friend, but I mentioned that, he wants these tattoos, and I don't really do tattoos in my world. And he kind of pointed me to them when they were Unearthed Arcana, and I said, oh, they seem maybe possibly cool, but I didn't say any more about that. The reason I know what I said is because he then said, when he finally, like, cornered me in chat and said, so, can I use one of my I know a guys? Actually, if you remember right, he was going to use his I know a guy for an astral fragment. He said, actually, instead, I would like to use it for my tattoos. Can I know a tattoo artist? And I'll do that instead. And I said, well, actually, I haven't decided to use tattoos as they're written in the rules. And he said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, I don't really like the way they work. And he said, well, what about them don't you like? And I said, I tried to say, look, because I knew it was going to be an argument. It really doesn't matter what about them I don't like. I've decided that I don't like them and I don't really want them in the game. And he said, well, you got to tell me why. And, and then he tried to say, well, you told me that I could have these. And I said, when did I tell you? I'm quite sure I never told you. Oh, he was pretty sure. So I went and checked the chat logs, which you can do in Google Hangouts. And what I did say to him when he first sent it to me was, oh, these look interesting. And I said that because when he sends me an Unearthed Arcana and says, what do you think of this? The unstated message, the subtext, is, I want to use it. Let's do it. Right? That's what it means. And if I say I don't like it, if I said I didn't like it back then, a year and a half ago, that would have started an argument right there. Since it was Unearthed Arcana, I said I'm not going to worry about it. That looks cool. We'll see what they do with it when they come out with it as a rule. Then, of course, D&D screwed me and put it out with Tasha's Cauldron of Everything exactly as it was written in the Unearthed Arcana. And I despise them, and I've told you why here, so I won't go through it again. So we got into a back and forth about it, and he was pretty unhappy, and I mentioned this on the channel. And what my friend then said, I'll talk about in a minute. But let's talk to Harvey Mailer, who says, it sounds like you learned a lot while you were adventuring on the psychic plane. Yeah, we found some of her memories. So your first journey was fruitful, so fruitful that you're going to go back. So this is defeat all minions on the plane now. So now we're not just looking for memories, we're going to defeat all of the minions. And this is in Talos Island. I don't know if it's going to be outdoors or indoors, but it's just a defeat all mission. So continuing with the story, while I was talking with him, I tabbed out into Discord and I was talking to this former guild leader who's a very good friend of mine. And I sort of mentioned, and I saw that she was online and a couple of other people, and I wanted a sympathetic ear. And I said, I can't believe this friend of mine is, going crazy with these tattoos, and I really don't want to use them in my world. And he's, and she said, well, maybe it's really important to his build. And I said, important to his build, like, as a DM, I get to decide what magic items are in the world, not him. And she said, well, the way she approaches it, which I consider just a very MMO way, but she argues she's been doing this all the way back to 2nd edition, and she does what he does. She creates a character at level 1 based on where she expects that character to be at level, 15. And part of what she creates is which magic item she wants the character to have. And her attitude was, if the magic item is a standard magic item in the books that we're using, right, And if it's a magic item that is going to be good for our character, and here we are in this giant plane on the defeat all, which is going to take forever, that I should let the character have it. And by not letting the character have it, I'm not letting the player realize the vision of their character. I'm not allowing them to have agency. I'm not allowing them to build the character the way they want. And my feeling is that magic items are extra. They're not part of your build. They're in addition. And she said, no, no, magic items are like enhancements in City of Heroes. They're part of your build. And you, therefore, essentially are almost entitled to have them. And I said, well, what if, the magic items you want in your build, I don't want in my world? And she said, well, if you're going to disallow magic items from the DMG, you should give the list of allowed and disallowed items at session 0 so players know how to do their build. And so I came to realize that this is a very different mentality from how I play role-playing games. I mean, first of all, a lot of my experiences with role-playing games where there aren't magic items, right? I have a huge amount of experience playing champions where it's just superpowers. And you literally can't add items that you found in combat or, on a bad guy to your build. You literally can't. You have to buy them with points. And you can maybe temporarily use Thor's hammer. Captain America can pick up Thor's hammer right now and use it in this battle because it's cool if he does. And he gets those powers temporarily. But if Captain America wants to keep Thor's hammer because Thor is going to keep his axe instead, then Captain America is going to have to pay, all 80 or 90 points or whatever it is for Mjolnir. He can't just keep using it. And the other main experience I have with tabletop role-playing games, of course, is with first edition D&D, where, players did not get to decide what their at least in my group, what magic items were put into the campaign. The other thing I would argue is, unless you are going to expect the DM to edit the module, what if the DM is running a module? He's running Storm King's Thunder, and you've got in your build I don't know, I'll say it because my best friend wants this, a ring of spell storing, and that's not listed in the treasure anywhere in the Storm King's Thunder, right? Her position, I guess, would be the GM should put it in there because it's part of his build. And then the question is, where does it stop? If the Hand of Vecna, which is a major artifact, you decide to put that in your build, I mean, are you allowed to demand that from the Dungeon Master? Now, she did say, it should be tier appropriate, so she wouldn't expect a +3 sword at level 1, but she would expect, if she has a +1 sword as part of her build, she would expect that sometime before 4th or 5th level because that's level appropriate and it's in her build. And I said, well, what if it's a low magic world and there aren't that many magic items? She said, again, the GM should establish that, but in her view, the default position should be that all of the items in the Dungeon Master's Guide are standard and available, and you can put them in your build. And she said, your friend, if your friend feels this way, he may feel, if you disallow tattoos, like you're disallowing part of his build. Now, again, I never told him I was allowing tattoos. And he never actually asked me if I was allowing tattoos. He had it in his head that I said I was, which I guess he assumed from the first reaction I had, which is, oh, these look cool, when I thought they were actual tattoos, right? When I found out you could take them off, give them to somebody else, that person could put them on, later take them off, give them back to you, I recognized that they're not tattoos, they're basically jewelry. And the tattoo thing, it was done by whoever created them as a power gaming mechanism to allow you to wear something in a slot other than like a ring slot. It gives you an extra slot for your magic items because it's on your part of your skin now instead of having to wear it. And that just seemed too power gamey to me, too gamey. It made it not be like real tattoos, and so I just don't like them. And so I know I never told him, yes, we're going to use them because I don't like them, and I've been saying that for months, and I have recordings of it here. But he certainly thought we were using them. He assumes we're going to use all optional things because he thinks all optional things are automatically awesome, and he often can't figure out why I don't think they're awesome, and will argue with me that they are. And so she said, well, and she made a good point. If your friend, kind of feels like he needs this in his build, as a GM, you should try to do what you can to help him, realize his build. So what I then said to him was, look, if one of the tattoos is something you think is critical to your character's design, then we can talk about another magic item that could duplicate the effect. But I'm not going to put tattoos as they are constituted in the rules as written into my game because I hate them. I did tell him, I'm toying with coming up with a different way to do tattoos that are more permanent. One of the other GMs said make it a feat, right? Just make it a custom feat that does what the tattoo would do. He can pick it you can pick a feat every 4th level. He can take it as a feat, except it's a tattoo feat or whatever. Like, well, he's going to hate that, right? Because I'm sure his build includes very specific ASIs, as they call it, which is whatever it is, stat increase, attribute, stat increase. I can never remember what ASI stands for, but it's the every 4 level you get to either take a feat or increase your 2 of your attributes by a point or 1 by 2 points. And I'm sure he's got it all worked out to level 20, exactly which ones he's going to take. And so, yeah, I mean, like, I made psionics available to the players at 6th level. They discover what psionics were like. I showed them the rules and said, if you wish, you can add psionics as a feat. And then every few levels you can, if you already have psionics, you can make them a little more powerful. 2 of the players asked me for details. As they get to level 8, they might take it. My best friend doesn't care. Why? Because he created the build for his character when it was level 1. There weren't any psionics that he knew about in the game, so he didn't put them into his build. And, to some degree, this guildmate of mine was almost saying, like, you should never put stuff into the game after session 0 that a player might want in their build, because then they can't plan. And, like, that completely takes all surprises out of the game. Well, she hates surprises. She likes to be surprised tactically, she said. She doesn't mind if, the trolls are under the bridge and they surprise her with a surprise attack or some cool tactical situation, but she doesn't like build surprises with her character. She wants to know exactly what everything's going to do 20 levels before she puts it into her character, 10 levels before she puts it into her character, depending on, what level it becomes available. She doesn't want any surprises. And so, on the chance that my friend might feel the same way, I said, well, you can, if you really want one of these effects, let me know, and I'll create a magic item for that effect. And I'll do that, I don't care. But I think many of these effects do duplicate what magic items already do anyway. Like, one of them is, gives him extra defense. Well, he could just get bracers of defense. Why doesn't he want bracers of defense? He didn't ask for that. He asked for the tattoo that replicates the effects of bracers of defense, increase your armor class. Why? Because he doesn't want to wear the bracers, because he wants to wear something else on his wrist, right? And the tattoos won't take up that inventory slot, you see. I also, I was mentioning to one of the other players, I said it's going to be very interesting. They don't know this yet, and I didn't tell her this. They found the Pearl of Power, which is one of the items he requested. Pearl of Power allows you to regain a spell slot, which lets you cast another spell of a certain level, level 3 and below. So he wants this because he thinks his character can't cast enough spells per day, which at this point I think is ridiculous. It's clear at level 7 that he can cast an obscene number of spells per day because of his sorcery points and his house-ruled ability to gain new sorcery points on a short rest. He regains half of them, which he had asked to regain all of them, and the cleric player actually objected to this and said it's super overpowered. And I didn't even know they were arguing about this because I'd gone to the bathroom. When I came back, I heard them arguing about it. And my friend said, okay, we're going to do half the sorcery points instead of full. Because Chuck made a good point, this other player made a good point about why it's overpowered. And I'm like, I'm glad he said it, because if I'd said it was overpowered, my friend would have said, no, it's not. Right? So fortunately, one of the other players objected to it and was, I think, kind of saying, it's going to make your character more powerful than all the rest of our characters combined in spells. And so he's got an obscene number of spells. He doesn't need more spell slots. He really does not. And so he's asked for this Pearl of Power. He gave it to me on his wish list. I put it in there for him. But as I mentioned to the player of the Ranger, who's the new player, like, who decides that he's going to get this Pearl of Power, right? I mean, it's party treasure. They gained it together. He's going to have to make the case to them that I'm the best one to have this item, right? Who says he gets it? I personally think that, and here we have the memory, so we're going to buff up a little bit. She's going to be a real pain, but we should be all right here because we are pretty uber. If I can click buttons, we'll be all right. We're going to just target her, heal up as much as we possibly can. She is a +3 boss. And we're going to cast Hasten here, and that allows me to just get the heal back a little faster. We might have to pop our Panic Power here, not sure. Yep. Alright, let's pop the Panic Power. We're going to need it. And this basically cranks our defense to 82 or 92%. And I'm just going to keep hitting her, even though it's sometimes unaffected. Just keep going after her. They shouldn't be able to hit me now. And they're still hitting me. Look at that. Okay, so that took care of her. We're going to just head out. I don't want those phantasms chasing me around. I don't care about the other characters. I just don't want to fight the phantasms because they're just not worth fighting. They're going to disintegrate eventually, so we'll just ignore them. So yeah, he doesn't actually need the spell slots, and I could easily make the argument, and I probably would if I were a player, that everyone but him needs the spell slots more because he can regenerate spell slots on a short rest. The Cleric can't, the Ranger can't, the Eldritch Knight can't. They can only get spell slots back on a long rest. So you should get everybody else other than the fighter and the fighter rogue. Everybody else in the party, everybody else could make a better use of that pearl. Needs it more than he does. And I would argue you probably want to give it to the Ranger, who is the backup healer for when the Cleric goes down, right? He also wants the Ring of Spell Storing. I finally, after much consideration, made it a quest item so that they can be guaranteed to get it, because he really wants it. But again, if I'm going to be a player in this group, I would argue he doesn't need the Ring of Spell Storing. What's he going to do? He's going to cast Fireball or Lightning Bolt into it so that he can use it in extra time in battle tomorrow. That's a waste. What you really want to do with the Ring of Spell Storing is you want to cast Revivify, which is a level 4, I believe, spell, and Rings of Spell Storing go up to level 5. Revivify, which lets you bring somebody back from being dead for 1 minute. Right? If they've been dead less than a minute, you can sort of like quick res them. And you want to have the Cleric cast that spell into the Ring of Spell Storing. And then you want to put that ring on somebody really tough, like the Eldritch Knight fighter or the fighter rogue. And now we're going to wait for our power to fade here because it's about to turn off. This is our panic power. You're going to see our endurance go down, and we just have to wait 20 seconds. So while we're waiting, you want to put that Revivify on the Ring of Spell Storing, and you want to give it to someone tough who's not the Cleric. Realistically, the Fighter Rogue or the Eldritch Knight, possibly the Ranger, you want to give it to them so that if the Cleric is dead, they can resurrect him. So now you've got 2 people who can resurrect. The Cleric and a backup character, so that the only way you'll get a character permanently dying is if both the backup character and the cleric die, right? And even then, you could pull the ring off the backup character and put it on somebody else. That is by far the best use for the Ring of Spell Storing. It can hold 5 levels of spells. You want to put a Cure Wounds and a Revivify on it and give it to somebody other than the cleric. That's the optimal way to do that, right? So he wants these two things for his own greed, to make his character more effective for his build, but it's questionable whether the party is going to actually let him have them. So I'm giving the stuff to the party, but it's really up to them who gets it. And I don't know if he's thought about that, right? Again, he's just thinking about his build and thinking about what he wants his character to be able to do, and that's not really got anything to do with the party, right? Because surely he doesn't expect me to give them multiple rings of spell storing and multiple pearls of power. That would be kind of silly. But if you listen to this guildmate of mine, like, her argument kind of would be, if the cleric, the ranger, and the sorcerer all wrote to me over email saying that my build includes a pearl of power, I should put 3 of them in the game. I don't believe in DMing that way. And it was very clear from our conversation that I would probably not mind her DMing for me, because I just would say, give me whatever treasure you want, and we'd get along fine. But I think she would be miserable in a game that I DM'd, because I don't want the I don't want the I don't want to be given custom order sheets for every character of, here are the magic items you will put in the game for me to make my build work. I want to say, look, make your build without the magic items, and the magic items are a bonus. But then, I have that same kind of mentality here, right? In City of Heroes, I build for the regular SO type enhancements, and all of these extra set bonuses I consider bonuses, not integral parts of my build. And so it's just a very different mentality, and it is not surprising that one of the people who's really into the mids and pines build system and using your build as the bonuses from the sets, doing partial sets and everything, also considers magic items from specific magic items from the Dungeon Master's Guide in D&D to be part of the character's build. So hopefully everything will work out. I think one of the things I now know for next time to talk about in a session 0 is to say, we need to come to some sort of an agreement here, because we have to decide, and I'm not going to be happy as a DM feeling like I have to put magic items into the game that you chose, and if I don't put those in, I'm a bad DM. But if you're not happy with the magic items unless I put in what you asked, we may be at an impasse. We've got to figure out how to solve this and talk about it up front, because, I knew he sent me a wish list, but I didn't think of him as having this mentality that these magic items are part of, quote unquote, his build, and I have to give them to his character or else I'm blocking his build. If he's going to feel that way, that's a very different way from how we approach D&D all the years I've played with him, and I've got to admit I'm completely blindsided by that, because none of the other players are acting this way, and I really didn't expect him to act this way. I wouldn't be as surprised if maybe one of the other players did, because I don't know them as well. But for him to act this way, it really completely blindsided me. So I'm going to try to accommodate him as best I can, without making me miserable in terms of feeling like I'm just the Amazon, www.amazon.com of my world game, and he's just sort of ordering and I'm shipping him magic items. I really don't want it to feel that way. So anyway, we'll have to see what happens. He and I haven't really talked about it since. So we had a session. They had a lot of fun. There were a whole bunch of magic items they haven't identified yet. So maybe he'll wait until after they ID the magic items. I suspect he may know that they have the Pearl of Power, because I described it as this very large pink pearl that was glowing, like it detected as magical, and transmutation, which is the right school. And so maybe he suspects what it is. I don't know. But he's going to have to decide if he wants to use his I know a guy, because the next city they go to is where the jeweler is that he said he was going to know. Okay, so we weren't able to learn anything on the psychic plane. It sounds like Vanessa DeVore found a way to shield her memories. Yep, she probably did. But it's been 30 minutes, Harvey, so we're going to have to continue this in the next episode. So I hope you guys have enjoyed. I have two. We're winding down. I suspect there are only a handful of episodes left. I hope that doesn't make you too sad. I mean, I'm a little sad because I love this character. But I'm also excited to get back into the Guardian and get back into my hardcore mode where one death and we have to delete the character. By the way, talk about hardcore mode. Two of the players, the one who convinced me to do hardcore and another one who have been very critical of Homecoming, they're doing a PvP where they're going to build a character. They're going to build their characters every so many levels. They're going to PvP each other. They're going to do 5 rounds, with the last round happening at level 50. And whoever loses, 3 out of the 5 rounds, whoever loses the match has to delete their level 50 character. And wow, that sounds really brutal. So anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Until then, I am Scrapperlock, and this has been City of Heroes on the Rebirth server.